Today's show is brought to you by Bruce Fine Construction. If you can't find the house to buy, maybe it's time to build your house. Bruce built my home, and I know he can build your home too. Check him out today at brucefineconstruction.com or call at 570-362-1185. This episode is brought to you today by Whitehall Mortgage. Where there's a will, there's a Whitehall. Buying a home starts by getting a pre-approval, and nobody does it better than Doug in Dallas. Call them today at 570-562-7505 or apply online at whitehallmortgagefinancial.com. Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Whitechuck. I'm the host of the Real Estate Right Now podcast. Today's episode, look, quit your soul-crushing job. And I'm here to tell you right now, if you can't quit, fine, but have a plan for how you're going to get out of that soul-crushing job. I say that because I did, and it was honestly the best decision I ever made in my life, and it allowed me to get into real estate, which allowed me to build everything that I've built to this point. It changed my life. It changed my family's life, and if you're out there working a job that you absolutely can't stand, I'm here to tell you right now, quit today, but if you can't quit today, start planning your escape. So I'm going to tell you a story about my life, and this is a true story. So I remember the day, the last job that I had in pharmaceuticals. I remember the day I checked out. I remember the moment where I had that epiphany, this realization oh my God, I have to get out of here. This isn't for me. I won't make it. When I got hired by my last pharmaceutical company, I worked with some great managers. The first manager that I worked for, honestly, truthfully, he was one of the best sales guys, maybe the best sales guy I ever worked for. And in fact, many of the things that I learned from him, I applied in my real estate business, and I still use some of his principles today in my business. But the last manager that I had, we never clicked, right? And in my mind, he was just a guy who couldn't sell. And it was really challenging for me to take advice from someone that I didn't think was very good at the job that they were giving me advice to do. But I remember what happened. There was a new position. We were launching a new product and we needed a new position. It was going to be a hospital sales rep, someone who's going to work directly in the hospital. Look, I was still relatively new to the company, maybe 2 years in, and there were a lot of great agents that had been there a very long time, and I thought they were actually great salespeople. This manager encouraged me to apply. I told him no. I said, look, I really don't think I'm the right guy for the job. I haven't been here long enough. I'm still trying to master my role and so on and so forth. But kept telling me to apply. And I went home and I told my wife and I said, look, keep telling me to apply. She goes, well, Dave, maybe they actually want you for the position. You should apply. I thought, all right, well, maybe I will. And what's so funny is, in pharmaceuticals, you're constantly in meetings. Like every 3 months, you have a big training or a sales meeting or whatever it may be. And I could remember, I'll never forget, we're sitting there and they're talking about this drug launch and how we're going to have this new position. And management went out of their way at all these meetings to say how impressed they were by their sales force because we were so highly skilled and well-trained and dedicated and such an amazing group of people that when it came time to hire for this new position, there would be no reason for them to hire outside of our company because the people were just so skilled and so talented. So, of course, I was encouraged. So I interviewed. My direct counterpart issued. Other people who sold different products in the company. Everybody interviewed. A week later, they announced that they hired someone from outside the company. That was literally the moment. That was literally the day. I remember sitting in my car and I remember thinking, F this place. I got to get out of here. No one asked if they thought we were good. They went out of their way to say how great we were. It's just one of those things where if you say the reason we don't have to hire outside the company is because there's so much talent and so much skill and so many great people within the company, and then you hire from outside the company, I just don't trust the word you say ever again. I think everything you're ever going to tell me is a lie. And I died inside for that company that day, that very moment. And it was then that I knew I had to plan my escape. I had mentally quit, not physically. I was willing to keep getting paid. But I started to invest in real estate. I got my real estate license, and I adapted the office space theory of I was going to do just enough work not to get fired. And that's exactly what I did. And then every year at the end of the year, they made you do something called Max Plan. It was called Max Plan. I called it Max Sham. And what the Max Plan was, they gave you like a day to do it. They wanted you to sit there on your computer and type up a 1, a 3, a 5, and a 10-year plan for where you see yourself in the company at 1, 3, 5, and 10 years down the road. And I remember I said to my direct counterpart, I said, dude, they don't even read these goddamn things. And he goes, nah, Dave, you got to take it serious, whatever. I said, I'm telling you, man, they don't read them. They make us do this stuff. They don't even read it. And I said, I'm going to prove it. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, wait until you see what I do. So I wrote my Max Plan, my Max Sham. And basically what I did was I said everything that they said to us, but I just layered it on about 10 times thicker. I said how great it was to be part of a company who recognized the greatness of their sales staff and how wonderful it felt to be valued and to know that I have such a bright future because so many people care about us and the company. It was complete garbage, by the way. And I wrote it in a way where it sounded like a professional wrestling promo. And it was like when I was writing this thing, as I was writing it, when you write a paper, there's a voice in your head and it's your voice, right? Well, when I was writing this, the voice in my head was Macho Man Randy Savage, and like I pictured him saying these words, because just like this over the top presentation. And I'll never forget the last line of my Max Plan. It said, I'm on a rocket to the top and I'm taking my team with me. And it was just, it was comical because at 1 year, I said I was going to be the head of the training department. At 3 years, I was going to be a regional director. At 5 years, I was going to be the president of sales in the United States. And at 10 years, I planned on having an ownership interest in the company. None of those things were possible in 100 years, but that's what I did. And I wrote it out that way because I was convinced they didn't actually read these things and it didn't matter what I said. Well, it turns out they do read them. I found out they read them because about a week later, I got a call and I'll never forget it. It was actually an email. It was an email that came through and it was on a Friday morning at 8:30. And I was with my partner at the time because we had a standing breakfast at a doctor's office in Hazleton. And I got an email and it said, Dave, we need you on a phone call at 9 a.m. with your manager and our regional director. I thought I was getting fired. In fact, I was 99% sure I was getting fired. And I said to my counterpart, I said, look, man, I'm pretty sure they're going to fire me. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, they're telling me to get on a phone call at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Friday with our manager and the regional director. I'm pretty sure I'm getting fired. So at the time, because we drove so much, my phone's connected to come through my car. So I convinced my counterpart. I said, dude, if I'm going to get fired, I'm going to go down swinging. So I said, here's what we're going to do. I said, come sit in my passenger seat. I'll call them from the parking lot and you could hear them through the car. He thought it was a great idea. So we go out there and I get my phone call. It was my manager and it was a regional director. And I'll never forget. He goes, hey, Dave, thanks for taking the call. It's Jeff and I have Elizabeth here. And as soon as he gets into it, I said, hey, guys, let me just stop you right there. I said, I just want to tell you how excited I am that you guys are taking time out of your busy day just to call me. I can't believe it. When I wrote that Max Plan, maybe I'm getting a little too aggressive with my goals, but then I thought, you know what? Maybe I'm not. You guys keep telling us how great we are. And if you could see it, it's time for me to start believing it. So I'm going to set my goals high. And even if I don't reach them, it won't be because I didn't try. And if you guys see greatness, then I think I'm great too. And I just layered this on so incredibly thick. I just doubled down on it. I don't think they expected that. The phone went silent for about 5 seconds. And they were like, oh, well, yeah, sure, Dave. We think we like our sales force too. And I was like, look, I'm just motivated. I've never been more excited to be part of a company. And I can't wait to do great things here. And I'm more committed now than I've ever been in my entire life. And that phone call went on for about half an hour. And it ended with them saying, Dave, I almost feel like maybe we misunderstood the thought behind your Max Plan, but we're happy you're with us and we look forward to working with you in the future. And I said, thank you so much. I'll never forget this call. And I hung up the phone And my partner and I laughed about as loud as we could possibly laugh at any one phone call in our lives. And it was at that day that I'm sure they knew I was a complete idiot. But as it turns out, being a complete idiot is not a fireable offense. So I managed to stick it out about 2 more years in that job, doing as little work as humanly possible, just enough not to get fired, until the very next round of layoffs came through, at which point I was promptly laid off. I think I may have been the first person laid off in that round of layoffs. But by that time, I'd already had my real estate license, I had already been selling properties, and I had set myself up for the future because I knew I had a dead-end job. So that's my story about a soul-crushing job. That's my story about how I planned my escape. And if you're in the same position, if your boss is forcing you to write your Max Sham for something that you know you're never going to get to ever in your life, think about this story, let it inspire you, start planning your escape today, and start focusing on yourself and what your goals are, and maybe you'll find a future that you actually enjoy the same way I did. That's all for today. Talk to you again soon. Thanks for joining us for today's episode, everybody. If you want to hear more content, follow us at Real Estate Right Now Pod on YouTube. Once you're there, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. And if you want to follow me directly, check me out. It's Dave Wychak at Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, all the socials that you're already using.